Hey guys, this is Jay from Encounter Wargaming, and today I'm going to be adding another piece to our Malifaux table. I'm going to be showing you guys how I built this sweet little gallows to add to our Malifaux town. Sweet, so these are the materials we're going to need to build our gallows for our Malifaux table. So today I've got 3 different sizes of dowels. I just picked these up at the Dollarama. I've got a crap load of popsicle sticks, as usual. There isn't, wooden planks. I'm going to use a glue gun to pretty much attach everything together. Of course, we got glue sticks that go on the hot glue gun. I've got a knife here. I'm not really sure if I'm even going to need the knife, but I always have it with me. And wire cutters to cut the popsicle sticks. What I don't have shown here is you're going to need a handsaw to be able to cut these dowels to size. So let's get into building. So with a rather complicated build like this, I always like to do a little sketch. Now this is kind of my concept. As you can see here, it's just a basic platform, which of course we're going to build out of the popsicle sticks. And I'm going to use my dowels as all these legs, supports for the nooses. And we're also going to build a staircase, because traditionally there is a staircase of 13 steps leading up to a gallows. So these measurements I've put here, I wanted the platform to be higher than a standard Malifaux figure, because of course they need to drop through, right? You don't want to hit the ground, and sometimes they did dig a ditch, but if they had the staircase, it's usual that they would just fall through and hang there, right? So that being said, I've decided to make this platform 13 centimeters off the base of the terrain. The reason for that is so that there is a centimeter between each step, just for ease of math. Also for ease of play, because I want to be able to make these steps so that a 30 mil base will actually fit on the step. So that being said, let's get started. The first step is to build the platform. To build our platform, we're going to start with all our popsicle sticks. So to start, I'm not going to worry about length right now. I'm just going to start by cutting off all of the edges, because of course actual wooden planks don't have rounded edges like a popsicle stick. So that's all I'm doing. I'm just going to go around. I'm going to do that to a whole bunch of these. There we go. I've started with about 20. I computed, I think I only needed about 19, but I cut 20 just to start. So this is going to be our platform, basically. But before I start putting the platform together, I want to take my knife, turns out I do need my knife, to be able to just kind of trim the edges a little bit. I'm just going to whittle off some pieces like this, just arbitrarily, even if, I may be cutting these shorter, but I'm just going to go through and do this just to save myself time. Do it on all of them, and then that way it sort of gives them more of a realistic look. So let's do that, and then we'll start building. So now I've done all my whittling. Now I can actually start building this thing. Now, I did realize while I was whittling these that a few of these pieces are actually not going to be seen, and that's actually a good thing, because a couple of them I kind of screwed up on. Like this one, for example, when I was whittling the edge with the knife, it actually sunk in way too far and gave me that split there, which I don't want to see. So before we start building the platform, we need to build sort of much like they would in real life, like you would do with decking or whatever. You're going to want to build sort of a grid that all the planks are going to sit on top of. So I'm going to start by just taking a popsicle stick and gluing a little bit on the end there. Take my hot glue, throw a little bit on the end, and build a square. Like so. Next. Now I want to make sure when I do this though that I put my whittled sides on the outside. Make sure they're not on the inside, because these 4 are actually going to be seen on the edges. Just like that. And then what I'm going to do is put a couple down the middle. So in order to do that, I want to make sure I get them even, because there is going to be trapdoors in this thing. So right here we're at about 4 inches. I'm going to put first one 1.5 inches in there, and the next one the same, so that they're 1 inch apart, and that's going to be our trapdoor. Alright, so a little time lapse there so you guys don't have to see me fiddling around with popsicle sticks. So anyway, now that we've got our frame built, I'm going to start building on top of it. So I'm just going to take my planks, and because I did these the exact length of the trimmed popsicle stick. That means now all the ones I have here already cut with the trimmed off edges should just be able to start stacking across. So that's literally just as simple as deciding where your frame is. In this case, it's right along, oop, I'm doing that off camera, it's right along this edge here. And a little bit on the very tip. Careful of your fingers, hot glue is hot. And stick it on. Now, I do want to think about where these trapdoors are going to go. So in this case, once again, I'm looking at about a 4-inch width on this guy. So I think, much like I did with these two pieces, I put 1.5 inches on either side, leaving an inch between. I think I want to do the same thing here. So that might only leave us room for one trapdoor, but that's okay. So I'm going to build these out until I get to about 1.5 inches. And same on this side, so we'll check that out in a sec. And there's our start. So as you can see here, it actually worked out pretty close that 4 popsicle sticks were about 1.5 inches. That's great. Now, the next step would naturally, you would think, to be to put these short ones only as far as this width to leave the space for the trapdoor. But before we do that, we actually want to take into consideration the posts that are going to be, that the dudes are going to be hanging from. So if you guys can see my drawing here, even though I kind of put it drawn on the outside, I actually want this going through, because these 4 legs, as well as these 2 that are going to be holding up the dudes, are actually going to be just within this square. So I want to think about where those are going to go. It turns out that my dowel is, I'll show you, my big dowel that I want to use for that is pretty much about the width of a popsicle stick. So I figure if I leave one popsicle stick missing right down the center, that'll give me enough width to put this through after. So right now, I just want to cut that sort of 1.5 inches, and I'm just going to mark it out on some of these popsicle sticks. Actually, let's take one that's already cut up. Mark out 1.5 inches. And I'll do that on the other side just to save myself some time. And snip them just like I did on the ends here, and we'll start gluing them on, and I'll get back to you when that's done. So there you have it. That's the platform pretty much. Now I did notice that these spaces were a little bit more than a popsicle stick, but that's okay. I'll show you guys how to doctor that after. But that's basically our platform. So that's the basis we're going to build the rest on top of. So for right now, we're just going to go on to the dowels, and we're going to start measuring some stuff out, and start building the legs and all that kind of stuff. So let's get at it. So I've got all my dowels laid out, and as I showed you guys in my drawing earlier, I've decided that the 4 posts that are going to hold up the platform are going to be 13 centimeters high. And that's just to make the staircase easier later. So there's actually 13 steps. Now I did notice that the popsicle sticks are actually 2 millimeters thick. So in that case, I actually want to trim them slightly short. 13 centimeters by 2 millimeters. Now I only have 4 dowels here. As you saw, there was 6 legs. 2 of these are going to be almost the height, not exactly this height, but almost the full height, so we can just put those aside for now. And luckily, the 13 centimeters, these are exactly a foot, so 13 centimeters, of course, is just below half, so I should be able to get my 4 out of these 2. And just to make it easy for measurement, I am going to measure from either side. So I've got my 13 minus 2 millimeters, bam, and flip it around, same thing from the other side. 13 minus 2 millimeters, and that's that. So I'm going to take my handsaw off camera, I'm going to cut them, and they're going to look like this. There they are, easily cut, no problem. So those are going to be my 4 posts that this entire thing is going to stand on. And all it requires to attach these, I'm actually going to attach these now. So I'm just going to take my platform and put a nice big glob of hot glue in the corners. And just stick it in. Just like that. want to make sure I get these as straight as possible. Because the hot glue does have a little bit of a plasticky type consistency, I will be able to move it a little bit later, but once it's dry, I don't want them to break off. So for right now, I want to just kind of use my eye. See that? If I can't see the other one past it, then I know that they're lined up with each other. And it's that easy. Nice big glob in here. Same thing. Take a look at it from the side. As you can see, it's way off. Just move it up like that, and boom, lined up perfectly. No problem, no measuring, no muss, no fuss, right? As you can see, that one's a little crooked, so I'm just going to eye it up. If you're not very good at eyeing it up, you can always use a square of some kind, or any square piece of anything. A piece of foam core, piece of cardboard that's cut square, that you could use to line it up. But I build furniture for a living, so I'm pretty good at eyeing this stuff up. Not to toot my own horn, but you guys need to know about my horn, but there you go. Alright, that's the start of it. So, next. So for stability's sake, as you can see here now, I'm dealing with this sort of wobbly table. We are going to have to put more supports and stuff underneath, but luckily this is high enough that I can still work in there even if I attach it to my base. So I've just got a piece of 5mm foam core here. A while back I just cut up a piece of 5mm foam core and just made a bunch of bases for future terrain purposes, and it turned out this one was actually pretty much the exact size I need. And as you can see here, I've got this little piece sticking out. As I said to you earlier, I'm going to want to put a staircase on this afterwards, so I do want it to be a little bit more out this way. So this piece actually worked out perfectly. Now this is where you get to sort of square up these legs. So this platform I'm looking at, again, it was like 4 inches by 4 inches. I'm going to kind of want to draw a 4-inch by 4-inch square on here. So we're going to start by just arbitrarily marking a point there. So I've started from the 2, just because this little metal guy tends to screw with your measurements. So I can get it flat there at the 2, going to the 6, that's 4. And same thing here, from the 2 to the 6, here as well, 2 to 6, and then here as well, from the 2 to the 6. Now, like I said, you can use anything that's square to kind of square these up. I've actually got a piece of foam core here that is pretty much a nice square edge there, and I'm going to use that to guide me. So I want to line up this with my one corner there, this side with the mark that I've drawn there, and this side with the mark that I've drawn there, and just start drawing some lines. And this way I can put the posts just inside these lines, and they will end up at least pretty close to straight from the top platform. And as you can see, I'm going around in a clockwise motion, so if I get one side square to the other, then the next side should be square in succession. There we go. As you can see, I got a nice square there. And then all I'm going to do is take my dude. I think I'm actually going to put it this way around. As I've noticed, I put my square a little too much to the back there. So I do want more space up front for decorative stuff later than I do at the back, so that's fine. And all that requires is put a nice big glob on each one of these legs. Kind of have to do them all at the same time. Now, position them so that you're only touching down one at a time. So just inside the corner there, just inside the corner here, same thing here, and that one landed on its own, but I'll just push it out. The good thing about hot glue, as I've mentioned in past tutorials, is that you have a little bit of time to move it around before it dries. But you do have to hold it for a second before it dries. So because we followed that square now, I actually have some pretty straight legs. Not perfect, but that's okay. Because our other Malifaux terrain does look a little weird, and Malifaux is one of those sort of weird comic booky type environments where everything's kind of distorted and horror-y looking, so I think that's actually pretty good. Let's go on to the next step. Alright, so our next step is to do the actual posts that our gallows are going to hang from, that our nooses are going to hang from. So rather than me show you guys the measurements, much like I did on the legs, I've already cut these off camera. So as I showed you on my drawing, I wanted this guy to be 13 centimeters tall. These guys I want to be another 10 centimeters above that, because I figure that's just, I guess roughly twice the height of a man, right? Yeah, actually that would be about right, 'cause 32 millimeters high. So at this point, I've just got my two posts already cut. They're going to run from the ground right up to the top. So I want to be able to put these now. Like I say, I've drawn my lines here, so I know where my measurement is this way. However, it's going to be a little weird lining them up this way. So again, I'm pretty good with my eye. At this point, it's not exactly dead center, so for me to measure would actually be a bit of a pain in the butt. But what you can do is just with your eye, just kind of go like as even as possible to get this post parallel with the others. And then when we put the second one on, I'll try and get that one parallel with this post. Right? If I just go by the legs, it might be slightly off, and then when I go to put my my guy along the top, they're going to be all weird. So right now, I want to take my hot glue, nice big glob on the bottom of it, and I'm just going to run it through the center. I'm not going to put any glue on the side quite yet, because I want to be able to position the bottom first. So again, I'm going to try and get it as parallel to the other two legs that I've made as possible. I'm not waiting too long, because even though this does take a second to dry, I don't want it to harden before I stick it down. So anyway, I think that looks pretty good there. What do you guys think? Not bad, eh? Cool, so now that that's in, I can actually take this area where it's coming through and just squeeze a little bit of glue down in the side there. Let it run down a bit, and then just stick it to the corner. If there's a little bit extra on there, a little bit of squeeze out, no big deal. You can always trim it with an X-Acto blade later, but while it's still wet, without it being too hot, you can just kind of wipe it with your finger too, and that evens things out pretty well. Now for the other side, I want to look at it directly straight, so that way I can line it up perfectly with the other post. Again, we do want to stay somewhat parallel with the legs, but if my legs are slightly off, which it looks like they are, I'm better to line this up with the other post rather than just with the two legs. So from my angle, I'm looking straight at it, and just like I mentioned earlier, if you're looking through the post and you can see the other one, then it's not in the right spot. There, I can't see the other one, and I want to make sure I'm also right up against my tingies there, my boards. So that way I have equal on either side, and then we're going to fill those gaps on the top there in after. Squeezing a little glue in there, wiping it off with my finger, and that is that. Now, because I waited a second, I've noticed that this is actually a little bit weak here. What you can actually do after is you can go around and just squeeze a little bit of glue around the bottom of the posts. Give them a little extra strength, because we're going to put sand and stuff on this base anyway and cover up these mounds. And it actually kind of makes sense if the sand is sort of mounded up a bit around the posts. So I'm actually going to do it on all 6 of these, whether they need it or not, just to make sure that everything is kosher. Excellent. You want this to be a nice strong terrain piece, especially being as tall as it is and sitting on foam core rather than like plywood we've used in the past, because foam core does have a tendency to rip. But once I layer glue and paint and all kinds of stuff on here, it'll be plenty sturdy and durable. So there's that. I'll see if I can actually pan up a bit for you guys because you can't see the entire thing in the shot. There you go. So the final step, I have cut this dowel again before I showed you guys here. I cut it off camera, and I did it pretty much exactly the width as above the platform. That way it comes over these posts just slightly. In fact, it should be flush to the outside, but it might come over just slightly. Because of that, I'm going to put glue on top of these posts, not on the side of this one. And then I am just going to sit it flat on. Now, I really got to be careful here because the squeeze out is going to look ridiculous if I don't wipe it with my fingers like that. Now, again, it's hot, guys, so be careful. But I think that will do quite fine. And there you go. That's the start of our gallows. That's the basic frame. Now what we're going to do is we're going to fill in all the details, and we have to build the staircase. Let's get on to the staircase. So, we're going to get started on our staircase. Now, as I told you guys, I wanted to make it 13 centimeters high, because that way there can actually be 13 steps a centimeter apart. Now, the problem here is I didn't realize when I was planning that, is that one stick is not going to make it. So I'm going to have to double these up, but I only want it to go as far as this thing is wide. I don't really want the staircase to stick out more than that, just for aesthetic reasons. Also, this will, you know, add a little bit of structure. The thing we're looking at now is that we actually have to find the angle that we're going to want to do these at. So I've taken these popsicle sticks here that I haven't trimmed the edges off yet. Also, I've picked ones that are relatively straight. You'll notice when you get a bunch of popsicle sticks, some of them are super crooked, they're all over the place, especially if you're buying them at the dollar store like I was. So the easiest way to do that is just to take the two like that. Now on my top here, I'm going to mark from the other side, sorry my arm is in the way there, I'm going to mark from the other side here the top surface. And hopefully, yeah, see, that gave me, oh, light's a little too bright. That gave me a nice pen line to be able to do my cut on. So I'm going to take my clippers, just like I've done before, with the ends before, and line it up with my line, and snip. Perfect. I'm actually going to trim that a little bit more, because it wasn't quite clean. So there you go. Now what I want to do is just double check, measure twice, always make sure things are right before you start cutting all the rest of them. I can always cut a new one if it's wrong. There you go, that's pretty perfect. So what I want to do now is I want to take all 4 of my popsicle sticks and cut all of them to have that angle on at least one side. And actually I don't even need to draw, I can just take my clippers, line it up, snip. Now, make sure you're always using the original one on the rest of them, because each time you might be slightly off, and if you use the first one for the second one for the third one, by the time you get to the fourth one, they could all end up off each other. So use the first one for all 4. Pro tip. There we go. Bam. Now, I should have one going this way, and the other one flip around to go that way. And I want to see what the entire length of this is going to be, and then I can just arbitrarily draw a line somewhere in the middle. I kind of want it here, I guess, to maximize the popsicle stick. Where they overlap, if you can see here, what I'm going to do is go just above the round on the other one, just like that. I don't want to overlap them because I don't want this to be doubled up when it's finally done. I want it to be one thickness, the 2 millimeters all the way up. I don't want it to be 2 millimeters here, 4 millimeters here, and 2 millimeters here. I want it to be 2 all the way up. Now, you will find gluing these together butt grain to butt grain is not going to be super strong, but that's okay. We are going to reinforce it with the steps as well as gluing it onto this. Right now, I just want to get my depth. So that's my measurement. More or less, I want to be drawing a line that's relatively square now. Again, I'm personally not too bad at just lining it up with my eyes. As you can see there. Got as close to a 90 degree as I can. Snap. Again, if it's a little bit off, no biggie. So there we go. There is my one rail. Blam. Perfect, right? Take a little bit of hot glue. Actually, I'm going to cut my other ones, and then I'm going to take a little bit of hot glue, glue them together, and it's going to look like this. There they are, all glued up, like magic, eh? So, as I said to you, I want 13 steps, and I did it 13 centimeters. What I've actually realized, there is a method to my madness. These popsicle sticks are pretty much exactly a centimeter. So, now that I've drawn this strange angle line here, to make it easy for me to line up my steps so that they're all, you know, parallel with the ground, I'm going to line up my popsicle stick with my angle, and I'm going to start drawing pen lines. Just like that. Like I said, I want them 1 centimeter apart, and the popsicle stick is 1 centimeter, so bam. Now as I go down, following that with this nice little spacer here, the cut off of the popsicle stick, they're all going to end up nice and parallel with each other. See if you can see that, if I can get a better shot of that for you guys. There you go. That's easier to see now, isn't it? I'm going to do that all the way down, and it's going to look like this. So there you have it, ladies and gents. We have we've plotted out where all our steps are going to go. Now we got to cut the steps. So, as I said, I want to actually physically be able to fit a Malifaux, at least a standard person, on these steps. Obviously it doesn't have to be able to fit every base in the game, but at least, you know, the human-sized base, which I believe in Malifaux is a 30mm base. So I'm going to take my popsicle sticks, and I'm going to use the ones that I already whittled over here. There we go. My extra ones from my platform. Just move these aside for now. And then I'm going to measure out 35. Actually, let's go 40. Maybe my flesh construct can fit on these steps too. There we go, I've got 40. I believe these guys, I should be able to get... Yep, I should be able to get 2 out of each stick. So that's good. I want 13 steps, so I'm going to need like 6.5 sticks. Actually, I believe the 13th step is actually the ground, so I might only need 12. We'll see what happens in a sec. Come back in a sec, and they're all done. So, I was right. There is only 12 marks on here. The 13th step being the actual platform itself. Perfect, right? Couldn't have worked out better. So, now, like I showed you when we were doing the sides here, I wanted you to cut that seam that connects them at a 90 degree, and you can see with my pen mark there, that's why. Because hot glue is actually very weak, especially when you're attaching an end to an end like this. There's not really any surface area that's grabbing. That's why in the last shot, as I was moving these things around, it snapped in half on me. Because the hot glue is really not holding that. But now, I'm going to have a step going opposite that cut, so it's going to hold both sides together a little bit more. Does that make sense? Plus we're going to be gluing it onto the actual thing, and the halfway point is pretty close to this post, so it'll add extra strength. And we're going to be adding supports and cross beams and all kinds of things. So right now, all I want to do is take my hot glue. I did notice, even though I tried to do these exactly 13 centimeters, that there was a little bit extra space there, where you can see that, where it didn't quite go all the way to the end. That's okay. I'm going to leave that as the very bottom step. Because if I have the top one a little bit off, it's going to look weird, whereas at the bottom I can fudge it with some sand and stuff like that. So, that being said, actually it'll probably be easier if I put a little bit on the end of my popsicle stick there. A little too much. I can just wipe it off on my cutting mat. No biggie. And because I have that little extra space, I'm going to use that to my advantage. I'm going to put the popsicle stick just below my pen line. And we're going to go just do that all the way up, and it's going to look like this. Sweet, right? So there it is. Now, I'm actually glad I did this off camera, so I can avoid you guys hearing all my swearing and stuff. This is very meticulous. Getting all these to line up and then getting them all to line up on the other side was actually a gigantic pain in the butt. And I did run into the incident where you can see there where they actually didn't end up lining up with my pen lines on the other side. The first side, no problem. The second one, they started to end up a little bit off. I don't know why that was, but like I said, I build furniture for a living, and occasionally stuff just throws you for a curve like that. You know, you can't really anticipate things like that. I mean, you can have the greatest plan, you can be going by the most detailed drawing, and then something just goes wrong where things are off a quarter inch, a half inch, an eighth of an inch, and you have to correct for it on the fly. So this is one of those incidents where I had to correct for it. And my wife in the other room was probably like, what the hell are you swearing at all day? But there you go. So I got it together. So my only real advice, guys, is take your time with it. Be careful. Don't rush it, and don't get frustrated. If you do get flustered, take a break. You know, if you smoke, go for a smoke, or have a coffee, or, you know, have a snack, whatever. Take a break for a little bit and then come back to it, because it's not worth ripping your hair out over. But as you can see, it turned out pretty good. I mean, it's a little rickety looking, but that's okay. So is the rest of our table. Anyway, what I've done here now is I've cut my last remaining large dowel, the pretty much exact height of our platform. Here, I'll just move this up a bit. There we go. Got them pretty much the exact height of the platform. Now this is going to be our support for our stairs, because right now, if I just throw this on, it's just kind of hanging out in the middle of nowhere, and that is kind of silly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the 3 points along this that I want to connect it. So I've got right there on the post. I'm actually going to mark that. Flat with the ground, flat with the top, boom. This is where it's going to be on my post. Don't worry about getting pen and crap all over this stuff, guys. We're going to paint this after. So right there, there, and there. Here, here, and here. Put some here. So you can't see that. Yeah. And yeah. Now I'm going to attach this to the gallows before I put in the support, because otherwise I don't really know where the support's going to end up. And I can use this to kind of straighten the fact that this thing's a little bit crooked right now. And attaching it to the posts at this point, the existing posts, is going to add a lot of strength when I'm adding on all the other pieces. So that there, just hold it until the glue dries, and we're good. So as you can see here, this part is pretty wiggly. So what I want to do is I want to get it as straight as I possibly can. Now maybe it's a good idea at this point for me to put a popsicle stick here just to make sure that this is level. And as you can see, I don't know if you can really see that, hopefully you can, but this is actually coming up a bit. So if I push that down, that'll give me more of a guide. As you can see, this is not even close. So by pushing in the bottom, it'll push that side up. Now I've got a good spot for it, because I'm going to want to put the final step on there. So if that's where I want it to be, I'm going to just throw a bunch of hot glue on the sides. Again, we're going to be layering this up with sand, and it actually makes sense that there's a little bit of a slope leading into stuff, especially if it's been there for a while. It's starting to get buried over and stuff. And I'll just hold that until it dries. There you go, and we're good. So that's on there. Now I got this guy that I showed you, that I cut. And I'm going to put that guy right up in behind, just to kind of hold that in place. So as you can see, now this is coming off a little bit at the top here, probably because I wiggled around a bunch of stuff. So I'm just going to squeeze a little bit of glue up in there. There we go. Give that a nice ting here. And this guy, I want to put him so he's sitting nice and flush with the top of my side there. I also want to make sure it looks relatively straight, so that's actually perfect right where I'm holding it. So I'm going to start by putting a little bit of glue right here on the bottom, and then just a glob on the side of it at the top there, and that's going to connect to my staircase. Now I want to connect it to the staircase first, because once I stick the bottom to the foam core, it's going to be very hard to move. This one I can kind of fiddle with at the top a little bit. And again, hot glue gives you a minute to play around. Move it around a little bit. That is working out pretty beautifully right there. Now, I don't like how weak that is right there, but perhaps we can fix that in a minute. Right now, I'm just focusing on this post, making sure it's nice and flush at the top with my cut, and making sure that I look at the post next to it and that it's relatively parallel. It's not exact, but it's pretty good. I am quite happy with that. So there we go. Excellent. Let's take a look at it from the front. Wow, those look super crooked, don't they? I believe what's happened here is, as you can see, I've got this rim around the top. Now what that's done is that pushed this side out compared to the bottom here. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to take my knife and I'm going to correct that. I'm going to just cut into the foam core a little bit, just to free up the bottom, and that will allow me to move. I don't want to screw with the top now that I've got it all nice. Moving around this bottom, even if the foam core looks a little bad afterwards, again, we're going to be covering with glue and sand and paint and all kinds of stuff. So I think it's going to be easier if I free up the bottom at this point without breaking my staircase. There we go. And I'm just going to move it so that it looks straight. And that, from the front, looks much better. Good stuff. So now I can glue down the bottoms again. And like I said, guys, sometimes stuff like that, you have a plan and it just goes south. You gotta kind of just go by the on the fly, by the seat of your pants, and correct things as they come your way. Again, I did have a great plan going into this, at least I thought I did. And things, especially with this staircase, it seems, are just throwing me for a loop. So anyway, that now has been corrected. Sweet, so there we go, it's all nice and dry, and now we're going to clean this up a little bit. Ow! Just burned myself with my glue gun. Hot glue is hot, guys. So, I guess to finish the top here, we're just going to add a final, like, sort of cap step here, just to cap off that post so you don't see the post. And we'll create a final step for guys to walk up. So, I'm going to start by cutting off the rounded tip, as always. Don't want it to look rounded. And then I'm going to come at it from the back here. And draw my line just past my steps. Not really that clear, but good enough that I know where to cut. Bam, there's my final 13th step. And a little hot glue here. A little hot glue here. Just have to kind of push the squeeze out down. And all this squeeze out you got around the post, again, you can just wipe off with your hands. Well, it's still a little bit wet, but again, if it's super hot, don't burn yourself, guys. Not worth it. It's easier to clean it off after with an X-Acto blade than to heal a blister on your finger. That is the frame of our gallows. Now we're going to get to adding all of the details. Support beams, we're going to finish filling in the tops here, and we're going to build a little trapdoor. So let's go on to support beams. So looking at my carcass now, I guess skeleton is the best way to put it. I'm going to take my slightly smaller dowel, my medium size. In this case I have 3 sizes that I got at the Dollarama. I'm going to use this medium size now to do all the support beams all the way around. So I'm just taking it and I'm kind of putting it around, seeing what I think Looks great. Here I've decided I think I'm going to go an X pattern from post to post, putting them up underneath. And here, where the staircase is, this is what threw me for a loop. So as you see here, my treads were a little bit off, right? And we moved it over a little bit because it didn't quite line up properly. Now I've got the space between the post and the, not the riser, but whatever this part of the staircase is called. Sorry, I don't know. And here in the middle, where it was very weak, sorry I didn't show that, here in the middle where the side was very weak, I'm going to hopefully tuck in these supports in behind like that. So I think I'm actually going to run them opposite the staircase, because I thought about it and I was like, I could do an X in there, but the ones running this way are going to be parallel with the staircase, which just doesn't look right. It hides them, right? So here, not only can I put it between it actually perfectly fills the space between the post and the stairs, which it probably shouldn't, but it does. It should be the width of a popsicle stick if I had built this correctly, but of course, like I said, you know, things throw you for a loop and you gotta correct on the fly. So now I'm gonna have to correct a whole bunch of other things to try and hide the fact that there's a gigantic mistake right in the middle of the piece. But that's cool, because right now I can do that. I have that space exactly, so I'm gonna run a support beam there, cross from beam to beam, from post to post, I should say, as well as another one there. So we'll have the lines going this way on the front and back. I think I'm going to do an X. And on the other side, I'll probably run them both this way, just so it's the same as the other side. I could run them both this way, or one and one. Actually, that might look better. Yeah, I like that better. So the hard ones are going to be this one, I think, because that's where I'm covering my mistake. So I'm going to take my dowel, and I think I want to run it outside my skirt here that I originally put on, only because I want it to fill the space between that post and the sides. Otherwise, I'd be running it behind the skirt there. Do you know what I'm saying? Because that way my cut doesn't have to be exact, and it's hidden. And then the one that touches the ground, also, if it's not exact, you know, a perfect angle or a perfectly straight cut, it's okay, because we're going to be putting sand and rocks, and etc., etc. I'm sure I've said that 1,000 times. I don't mean to be redundant, but there it is. So all I'm going to do is just find where I want to put it, and looking at the apron of the top there from the side, I am going to just draw a pen line where I want it, and then theoretically the next one over should of course be on the same angle. Here at the front, I'm not going to worry about an exact angle so much, but I'm not going to use the same dowel. Obviously I'm going to cut that one to match that now, but I'm going to take it like this, and I'm going to roughly decide that's the height. As long as it's behind my skirt here, there's no problem. I'm going to run them both behind. Same on the other side, so no worries. Huh, looks like I can use the same one. Awesome. So I can get 2 out of each of these. That's excellent, because I've got 2, 4, 6, 8 to do. So let's cut them. And there it is. Isn't it great to be able to snap your fingers and have it done for you? So next step, we're going to start putting in our support beams. So to start, the ones I'm really worried about are the ones next to the stairs here, because that was where we screwed up, or where I screwed up. So don't repeat my mistakes, guys. Make sure your lines on those treads are lined up the first time, and you won't have that problem. But you're still going to want to do these anyway. So I'm going to start by putting a little bit of glue on my angle there. As I said, I cut this angle specifically for this spot and for the other sides too. The ones on the front, I was less worried about the angle. So this one, I gotta make sure I place it aesthetically properly. And I want to make sure that from the front, it fills that gap between the post and the staircase, but also still connects to my other post, runs from post to post, which is why it's supposed to be there. Supposed to post from post to post. Anyway, perfect. So now that my glue's dry, I can actually get up inside a little bit and put some hot glue underneath that support beam I just put in, connecting it to the staircase, creating a point of adherence, fastening it to the staircase. There it is. So My front ones, I'm going to be a little less careful with. I'm just going to put a crap load of glue on the top of this one and a crap load of glue on the bottom and tuck it up underneath. Shove that right up in that corner, this one down in this corner. No problem. And then what I can do after is just surround the bottom here in hot glue. Again, we're going to put the sand on this to cover up that big ass glob. No problem. Perfect. And the second one to go in the front. Tuck it in behind this guy. Up in the top corner, in the bottom corner. Oh, see, I knocked my first one off a little bit, but that's okay. Because I want them to work with each other. So whatever I have to do to move the two of them around to make them support this and still look proper, bam, no problem. And again, I'm going to cover the bottom in hot glue. Get a nice big glob wrapped around the bottom, cementing it to the base so I don't have any breakage later when people are actually playing on this terrain. Specifically me and Adam playing on this terrain. Bottom there. There's a nice big glob on the bottom here. Excellent. There's that. So once we get the rest of them on, it's going to look like this. Sweet! There it is. All our supports are in, well, at least all the ones on the bottom. So now what we're going to do is we're going to fill in this gap here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take just a random popsicle stick again, trim off the crappy ends, rounded ends I should say. Now, like I said to you, I wanted to leave enough space that this popsicle stick, because it's just exactly as wide as the dowel pretty much, so I wanted to leave enough space that only this dowel could come through, but as you see, we're left with like, I don't know, maybe another 3 millimeters or so. So, what we're going to do instead, I'll take a smaller piece actually, and put it in there, right up against the dowel, finding our point where our trapdoor is going to start. I'm just going to, whoop, if I can get it to balance, I'll push down that side. I'm just going to draw a line where I want to cut it, and cut it. Now, as you can tell, we're going to need 2 of these, but we're going to cut a third one. Just a little bit longer, and I'll show you in a sec. So this one, I'm going to cut right there. Now, is this big enough to do another one? Just. Perfect. Cut that. Now, that one that we just cut, we're going to put here, and we're going to put right to the edge on top of the other board. That runs from end to end, as it should. And then, marking off our trapdoor. I'm going to do the same here, actually, just square that end up with that side. Mark where our trapdoor is going to go. And then cut them. Oh wait, I only need 1 for this. My bad, why am I marking 2? Well, actually I'm going to cut 2, just in case one messes up. So there's 1. There's 2. Because this could go south on us. This is the step that's going to be weird. So I basically need like half a stick to fill that. So I'm going to take my clippers, and I'm going to try and get them as close to the middle as possible, and snip it. Right there. See? Didn't crack exactly the way I wanted it to. Good thing I cut a second one. So now I'm going to try and find roughly the same distance as the first side that I cut, since now I don't have half to work with, or a full one to work with to figure out half. Cut. And it would be better just slightly smaller anyway than half, but there's 1. Let's do the second one. Perfect. Next. About half. Excellent. Break it if I have to. No problem. So, I'm going to glue these on, and it's going to look like this. Perfect. Looks great. So that's all filled in. Now we're going to work on actually adding some supports to our top. So I'm going to use the smallest of my dowels. Like I said, I have 3 sizes, 1, 2, 3. And just like we sort of did on the corners there, or on the bottom I should say, I'm going to do on the corners here. Now, these ones I do have to kind of cut on an angle on both sides, so that is a little bit of annoying, but I do only need 2 of them. So I'm going to look at it straight on, see where my angle needs to be. Now, the good news about this super skinny one is that I can actually cut it with a knife, which makes my cuts more precise, I suppose. As long as I look down, bird's eye view at it. Usually takes about 4 chops. Did it in 2 that time. Excellent. Normally it's 3 or 4. Go this way. Got it in 1. Excellent. And that will go right there. Perfect. So I'm going to cut another one, glue it on, and it's going to look like this. Sweet, and there it is. So those supports are done. All our other supports are done. Now we got to work on our trapdoor. So this is the fun part. I'm going to take my popsicle sticks. Actually, I'll just take this little short one here that I'm using to wipe glue off the corners with, and just see my size. Excellent. So I'm actually going to run this one opposite the pieces on the other one, just so people are clear that it's a separate piece. So there you go. I've marked how wide I want it, or how long I want it, sorry. And now I'm going to have to figure out the length. So figure out the width. So there's my length. And I think it's actually only going to take 1 more. So let's check that out. And there's my trapdoor. So I actually did decide to do the half there. I said it was just a little bit more than 2. I did that exactly the same way I did the ones beside the post there that we did earlier, so I didn't feel like that was necessary to show you again. And now I'm just going to make sure that it fits. And it has to fit snug. So it fits pretty good there, actually. So I want to just trim a little bit more off this side because of those boards there. And I can just do that with my X-Acto knife because I don't need to take off much, and we do want it to look whittled and worn anyway. So I'm just going to dig into the center here a little bit. Always cut away from yourself when doing this kind of stuff, guys. Trust me on that one. I have had stitches before from this knife, this exact knife. And there we go. Let's see if that fits. Yeah. There we go. So I can just pressure fit it. Luckily I made it just big enough that I can just pressure fit it like that. There we go. And I'm just going to squeeze some hot glue up underneath. In fact, now that I put my supports, it's very hard to do that. So I'm going to take a popsicle stick, I'm going to squeeze a big glob on the end of the popsicle stick. And before it dries, I'm going to use that to kind of like slather all over the bottom here. Sort of like you do with like crack filler or something like that on a putty knife. Except this popsicle stick is your putty knife. So I'm going to put a lot more and then get that whole bottom covered. Now we really should have put this on before we put all the legs on and stuff, guys, but again, I had a plan doing this, and sometimes it just goes south because you didn't think of something or you didn't measure something properly. You know what? This will be just fine. Look at that. Beautiful. And because I made them go opposite these ones, it actually looks like it stands out as a trapdoor. So that's excellent. This is my completed plan. This was my original plan. It doesn't quite look the way I expected it to, but it looks pretty damn good. Now, because I messed up on the staircase, I think I'd like to fix some stuff, because from this angle it actually looks great. And from the front, you can tell the stairs are a little bit crooked, but it's not too bad. From this angle we're good. But from the back, look at that. It just looks absolutely horrible. So we're going to come up with something new. I think I'm going to keep adding to the back a little bit here, because I don't like how skinny that final step is. You know what I mean? It doesn't quite look right. It looks like there's like a piece missing there. Like, you know, they would walk up and then walk along and then get up on the thing. So, I guess that's the next fixer-upper. Like I said, when one little thing is off like that, it's like if you had done that one thing right, it would have only been one step there, but now we're going to have to do like 4 or 5 steps to correct this. So I'm sorry I made the mistake, guys. Thank you for watching the tutorial. The point of these tutorials is to teach you how to do this stuff, and I guess the best way to learn is by making mistakes. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to take my medium-sized dowel here, and I'm just going to put posts. 1, 2, maybe 3, and then 4 coming out from this post, and then just lay popsicle sticks on top. So even though it looks super crooked from this angle, if you look at it from on top, it's actually quite straight. So that's good. That'll work to my advantage. So I probably don't want them coming out very wide. I'm probably going to do these posts maybe 2 rows. Let's take a look at the top here. What looks good? Yeah, I'd say 2. Brings it out enough that it looks like someone could stand on that. For sure. So 2 is really only 2 centimeters roughly, right? Double check that. Yep. Oop, pretty damn close. So I'm going to cut 4 2-centimeter pieces off this dowel, and it's going to look like this. Sweet, right? So I went ahead and glued them on. Now, I actually wanted to make sure, I will note that I made sure when putting these on that they were flush with the tops of these popsicle sticks. And the reason that is because I'm only doing this really to fix unforeseen mistakes. So this final step, the 13th step that I added here, is actually sitting on top of this popsicle stick. So it's just a little bit higher. So I put all these 3 flush with the top of that popsicle stick, and this one just below this popsicle stick. So that when I put all my other ones on, they'll be flat with this one. And even though they're slightly above these ones, it'll look like it's supposed to be like that. I'm going to cut my popsicle sticks just like before, cutting the rounded ends off, no problem. Glue them on top and make that look like a nice little platform. There it is, all done, ready to go. My 4 supports holding that up. As you can see, the back doesn't look so crooked anymore. Because before I was like, without even really looking at it, you could see that that staircase was totally crooked. Now, your eyes kind of draw away from it. The fact that the lines don't line up is covered up by this overhang, which is great. And from the side, it actually looks like somebody could walk up there and walk across. I got my Jim Bob the Space Marine here that I use for pretty much scale on pretty much all of my terrain pieces. Fit just fine. Fits on all these steps. Now he's got a 32mm base, and Malifaux bases are 30, but I pretty much use him for a lot of things. So as you can see, he can fit on the stairs, walk up and down them, no problem. He can fit up here, that's good. He's just slightly, not quite as tall as a Malifaux figure, but as you can see here, he can fit under here with space for his head still. So I'm sure Morning would be able to fit under there, no problem. Yeah, we're pretty much good. I think that's a piece complete. The only other thing I would think to add would be maybe a railing along the back here. I think the final step on this guy is to add a railing, so let's do that now. Alright, so what I've done here is I've just cut my small dowel in 2-centimeter pieces, and all I'm going to do is take my hot glue and put each one of these onto my post. Well, up onto my popsicle stick, but above where I put my post. Good news about this railing, yes, I kind of just decided to do it now and it wasn't part of the original plan, but I think it'll tie it together with our other Malifaux town buildings quite well. Excellent. Just adds a nice finishing touch to it, makes it look not so plain. Like I say, it'll tie it in with all our other buildings, and it makes this platform look like it actually serves a purpose. So, unlike what I've done on the bottom here, I don't want to match it exactly with these. So what I want to do is run it from one to another, but I want to only overlap halfway. Now, in this case I can go across the 3, but I want to be real careful on the 3rd one that I don't cover the entire post, otherwise the next one will have nothing to sit on, right? I want to get it just kind of halfway, so I'm going to mark it there as my sort of halfway point. so that both it and the one next to it can sit on that post. Perfect. And my next one, cut there, and putting it at roughly the halfway point. You know what, I'm going to do this instead. And mark the halfway point there. Perfect. Nice. I'll glue them on and it's going to look like this. So there's our completed piece. It looks great in my opinion. A couple of things, you know, didn't go our way, but that's okay because we countered them. And I think it'll blend in just fine with all of our other Malifaux terrain pieces. So that's our build, guys, for today. Tune in next week where I'll show you how to paint this, and then I'll show you how to make like a little noose to hang from there, and we'll go from there. So I hope you enjoyed that. Please hit subscribe if you enjoyed this tutorial and you want to see others. Also, if you'd like to help us keep doing tutorials like this, please check out our Patreon. Any little bit helps. We don't do this to make money, but it costs money to do this. So I hope you guys subscribe, I hope you check out our Patreon, and I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Until our next encounter.
Like a monkey in a rocket on his way back home. Okay.